Welcome everyone to a Delco Nerd Network Hot Take. Guys, if you haven't seen a hot take before, well, it's where a few friends get in a basement, give our thoughts, give our opinions on a TV show, a movie, or a game. Today, it's going to be a TV show, and that TV show is House of the Dragon Season 1. Here to discuss, as always, the King of the Andals, Chris Trio.
Lord of the what are the other ones? Lord of the First Men.
I wasn't
Lord
even
of the
going to
Realm.
try. I wasn't even going to try.
You should have remembered that entire intro for me.
I thought about it, but
It would have been
God
tough. You would have had to have
knows
in front
that
of you.
wasn't going to happen.
Gooch, how are you?
I'm good.
We're here to talk a little bit of Westerosian history.
Game of Thrones is fucking back, people, and it's better than ever. Who would have fucking guessed? This show would have been like exactly what we needed. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say again, like this wasn't a show I was asking for.
Nobody was asking
no one
for
was
this.
asking for it.
Nobody was excited.
So I will give
excited.
them. I got to give them a lot of credit for getting over that initial hurdle. I do think there's a weird sect of people who have no issues with the last season of Game of Thrones. I'm sorry, you're not weird.
Listen, I'm moved on. I'm choosing to move on. I
No,
don't
that's
care.
totally fair. I mean, I still will stand by that. That last season's a great blueprint for the last 3 seasons of the show that it should have been. But I mean,
we're not here to discuss the past.
we're here to
check out that
Well,
review.
technically, we are the past of Westeros. So this is set 200 years before those events,
172 at the start of it, and then we're probably more
like 150-ish.
What's crazy about this show is obviously if you watch it, 21 years elapsed from the literal first scene, or no, maybe not the first scene, but the first, where like Rhaenyra is young to where the show ends. But like the first scene of the show is, King Jaehaerys appointing Viserys as his heir, not going with Rhaenys, the queen who never was.
Yep.
And that's sort of the jumping off point as we examine the entirety of King Viserys' reign as the king of Westeros.
And I mean, this is truly just another Game of Thrones. Gooch. It really, but in a good way. Like
and this show is, I think, way more political than Game of Thrones ever was. Like think about it. Game of Thrones is not really just a show about the Game of Thrones and like the, what's going on with the throne, but like what's going on in the North, the prophecy and the what's it called, the great.
Sure.
What's the long night?
The long night, sure.
That's what the show is culminating to. That's what it's about. It's really not about what's going on in
the
Game
Game of Thrones is a piece of the puzzle, whereas in this, it is the puzzle. Yeah,
it's the whole puzzle.
I would agree.
We don't have a lot of
It is interesting
distractions.
to just sit really with one family throughout an entire season,
Right.
and really dig into their lore and what's going on and the family drama and this idea of Viserys the Kind trying to just do the best he can. He's another Ned Stark to a degree, but he will also sacrifice some things for family and some. He's a very interesting character.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think he's probably like one of the better characters, not better as in like quality, but like good men we've ever seen in Game of Thrones.
Sure.
He does a lot of shit that ends up fucking a lot of shit up.
Sure.
But I don't think he's making decisions out of like cruelty or to fuck anyone over. I think he's just like really kind of going with his heart most of the time.
And going for family. Yeah.
And obviously, like, following your heart can be a little bit naive sometimes, just as, really taking any path could.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that as we go towards the end of the season. I wanted to ask you this. Do we want to talk about, like, young portion of the season than the older part? Because, like, we do have a split divide there.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me.
I think it'll be kind of hard to jump back and forth.
Absolutely. Well, just
like
in
at first.
general, what did you feel about the aging up and the recasting?
I loved it. If you would have told me that, when I think we, going into the show, we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
It's a very tough thing to accomplish, to make an older version feel like the same person within a show.
They do and they don't. And I think that's a good thing because obviously Rhaenyra as a 16-year-old girl is different than when she's in her 30s.
Absolutely. She feels like a grown-up version of that person. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, of Rhaenyra.
And yeah, I think what made this show as good as it was is these time jumps. We don't really get that in Game of Thrones. I don't really know how much time really elapses in Game of Thrones at all. But it's definitely not like we're jumping like
years,
like months and years ahead of time. Maybe weeks, maybe days.
Maybe.
But, so like taking that idea and just being different off the bat, trying to separate itself from what's come before, I think was a crucial objective. I think that was something
succeeded
they
in
needed
making
to do.
Absolutely. I think they succeeded in making something new yet familiar in a good way.
Yeah.
And I mean, you see echoes of different characters within new characters. I mean, Hightower is obviously the worm. What's his name? Who's the worm guy?
Oh, I think Laris is more.
You think he's more? Yeah, I guess you're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
working.
he's a bit more for sure. But
little plebeian fucking fool
with his little
limp
leg
and his foot fetish.
But
what a scene, man.
You see these echoes of the old show within this new one, but in new and fresh and interesting ways. You're right. This is the game. This is much more focused on the politics and the game of trying to get who you want on the throne and the backstabbing that occurs. And I think the added layer of Rhaenyra and Millicent.
Millicent is from Eldrin.
And Alicent works very well. This idea of how they started out as really good friends at the beginning of the show when they're younger.
Almost lovers.
That's what so
that's what they keep saying.
I'm
like,
they did get the lovers, and they did mention that in the last episode, right?
And I think I've been listening to the official House of the Dragons podcast, which has been pretty interesting to listen to as the two hosts break it down. They do a lot of interviews and stuff. And Millie Alcock, is that her name? She was saying that like they do apparently have like a romance like any other teenage girls would have with their best friends. And I'm like, okay, I understand it from that perspective, but I don't think they're like, in love. I think they're just like,
see, I thought they were like, fuck it. Like,
no, I think they were like just BFFs and they're like kind of like obsessed with each other.
Like, I love you like a sister.
No, like a sister, but like more than a sister.
Okay,
I don't know. That's what I picked up on.
I mean,
because like they're not like having relations. They never do. Like
you would assume that they never did. Yeah,
no, not at all.
But it seemed like they might want to if things went that way.
But they care for each other.
Yeah. It was an extra added layer for sure that I found to be very intriguing and something that I came back to in the last episode a lot more with that kind of note she gives her.
Yeah, the page from the book from the episode 1, yeah.
It was interesting, but Alicent ended up becoming more of a layered character than I care to admit. At most points, I was like, fuck you crazy bitch.
It's so funny.
You
have characters like Kristen Cole who go from like, oh yeah, I'm a big Kristen Cole fan, and you're like, fuck
to just the
Kristen
worst
Cole,
fucking guy ever.
You dumb motherfucker.
You little whiny bitch.
Alicent's like almost the same way, maybe not as drastic, but like I started to like Alicent again at the end. I'm
That's
like,
true.
She's a little.
She has a line.
Yeah, she's not like totally unhinged. She's kind of doing things. She's playing right into what Otto Hightower wanted to do.
And she does
going
technically
for the
want like the fair thing in the way and how tradition has gone, and in the way of like Viserys is going out of his way to name a female heir, which he knows will cause issue in the and that causes a whole nother layer because by all rights in the Seven Kingdoms it should be Haegon, just anyways, but he's stepping in to do this. And you know what, Gooch? I'm going to say this is a story about the patriarchy that I don't mind. I think it's kind of interesting and
it is.
And very well executed and talked about in a historical context that makes very much sense and is a good kind of viewport to this idea. But even just the idea, that whole scene where all these similar names are fucking Rhaenys is kind of having that conversation with Rhaenyra.
The show.
At
first they were tough.
Yeah. In the first or second episode, she has that kind of conversation. She's like, "You're not."
I think it's the second episode.
You're not gonna sit on the Iron Throne, you dumb bitch.
He was walking with I forget which Valerian, the one Daemon ends up marrying. He's walking with her because like they were like, "You could marry this 4-year-old girl."
There were lots of walks,
and he's like, I don't know if I want to do that.
And I appreciate it. It's so funny. It's like, thank you, Viserys.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone should
Viserys is like,
either.
I'd rather marry the 16-year-old. Thank you very much. Or how old's Alicent supposed to be at that point?
I think 16.
Yeah, something like that.
I assume
lots
Alicent
of walks through the gardens this season, I'm realizing. Do you remember that in the South Park episode?
Yeah.
Get out of my goddamn garden.
Their betrayals. Yeah.
Amazing. So good. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting story about what women had to deal with in this time, and that they truly are very much just property at this point in the time.
You hear, I forget, Emma Aaron.
Yeah.
Like she even says to Rhaenyra in the first episode, like your battlefield is like having a kid, and I was like, interesting, interesting.
No,
perspective.
That's what it was back then.
And
Truly,
Rhaenyra was like, eh. Like,
back in the time of dragons. No,
I'm not about that life. And like she really is this kind of like tomboyish, like dragon rider warrior,
but still
in
very
the beginning.
motherly, even by the end, which I will get. Like, she's
but she ends up becoming what she doesn't want to become. For
a reason, yeah,
right,
which, yeah,
right. She falls into those molds because that's what society and that
that's what a strong leader seems like in that world. Yeah, that's kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, and she also is queen. It's not like she's not.
No, exactly. So she has to present powerfully,
acclimate to being a queen eventually.
I did think there was an interesting layer of her being like, well, fuck, should I just like this will cause a lot of shit. This what they kind of played me
from the beginning.
No, absolutely.
And through the whole season, they're like, someone has something to say about it, and it's like that was not the move.
But even
and
just
Viserys
her
is like, fuck you. Like it was, what was I supposed to do? Like like it was a good decision. You'll see.
No, and it is funny because like if you were a person in that court, it's like, well, the last king didn't just do that. So why are you doing that? Like it is funny to think about this idea of like oaths and. Even near the end of the season when they're trying to go consort with their allies and people are like, you swore an oath. And it's like, well, did you bring anything for me? Like, do you have anything to offer? Get the fuck out of here. Very political and just, whatever helps me out, I'm going to go with. My oath doesn't really mean much for certain people anyways. What else did I... Yeah, so the younger versions, I thought there was some very interesting stuff going on there. It was kind of jarring to see them jump really far in certain episodes. And then like they just have a kid, then he's big. But
see, I didn't think so.
I did settle into it by it's not like it's confusing. It was just more that I was like, there's nothing else you want to show in those time periods.
I'm trying to think. The first episode happens, and then it's 2 years, and then 6 months, and then I think the fourth episode, there's no jump. And then we jump 20 years or whatever. And, it's like, I forget what it is, but.
Or is it? I think it's 10 years. I don't think it's 20 years.
once, maybe you're right. Maybe it's 10 years. It's 10 years.
It's 10 years. It's like around 10, and then they get married, Damon and her. And then, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the show turn from the kids, story to their kids' story, like even though
it is
like
cool to see
the kids get involved more, and it starts with Aegon, being born, and he's Aegon the second, so there's been no other Aegons before him, so he has a very important name.
Well, if he's Aegon the second, wouldn't there have been one Aegon before him?
Right, there's only one.
Like, I thought you said. I'm
just
sorry,
talking about
yeah.
It's not like there's been he's the third. Mm-hmm. Nobody has named their kid Aegon yet. And this is like, once we get to Jon Snow, we're on 6.
Well, and then what's her name names her son Aegon too, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the third.
Interesting.
What was I gonna say? And yeah, so it's interesting to see like, and Alicent be this kind of like puppy dog almost, like queen, like doing absolutely nothing, like having no say, having really no backbone at all. I mean, she wasn't really meant to be queen, so it kind of makes sense that she really wouldn't. And then
she was a proper lady.
And once the scandal happens, which I found really interesting, in that last episode at the wedding, she comes down in the green dress and she has a backbone now, and war is a cold war has officially begun.
Absolutely.
In the kingdom. What did you think? We haven't really seen a lot of romances in Game of Thrones that are out of true love. I think the only one is probably, I guess, normal love. I guess like
I mean, for lords and stuff, it's always just
what are her names? Cersei and what's her brother?
Jamie.
Do they love each other? Yeah, but it's
but
incestual.
They don't. It's ancestral, but they also don't get married. Like, if you're a lord or lady,
Jon Snow and Ygritte. That's like the only.
But there's no like lords or anything
love.
that marry. I mean, I guess no, not even.
Like Jon. Eddard Stark loves
yeah, but Stark. That's not why he like.
Right.
They were just arranged, and even like you see Rob try to marry for love, and then you see what that got him.
Right.
So I do think that's kind of a sticking point of these shows.
So it's funny.
True
'cause,
love causes issues.
It's almost like I'm trying to go back to like when Damon takes her out into the city and like takes her to the whorehouse or whatever it was, and he like, I think his objective with that was to almost like not really seduce her, but like to like get her going,
show her, yeah. Well, or and
Like-
even to like show her like what's real. I don't know, like what's out there, and then what she could do as like a queen. I don't know.
To get her going and to start shit. I think that's like what his goal was at the time. And like he definitely had feelings for her,
Yeah.
but like he wasn't ready to like fully commit. It's probably because of her age, I would assume.
It would make sense.
And then she goes back and she's like, I'm like horny as shit. I'm gonna fuck Kristen Cole.
Yeah, and then he had to bitch out like you sullied my cape, and now if we don't run away together, I'm gonna be all sad and be a little bitch. Shut up, Sir Kristen Cole. God, that was such a turn. It really was.
I mean, and then he turns Allison. He's the same way for her,
Yeah.
except we don't really know if it's like a love. Like, I mean, I assume he does, right?
yeah,
Because she
He
does
should've
say,
just fucking killed
like
himself.
he's gonna kill himself, and then he just is like,
he
he
should have done it.
Now, like Allison saved me, but it's interesting, like, how did he not get reprimanded for like beating someone's face in? Like,
Yeah, that was confusing to me too.
like that was like uncalled for.
I
Like-
was confused there too. They didn't really
Like,
justify that at all.
I understand why he did it, but in the eyes of like
Everyone in the court,
guard.
they're like, "Why did you just beat this man to
what
death?"
did they do
yeah.
to him? Why didn't
It
he
does
get
feel weird that
disciplined?
he would not have any. I assume maybe Allison, after she found out all that, was
Right,
like,
easily
he
could've-
was helping me somehow or whatever, and gave
Right.
an excuse of some kind. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting and kind of like nice to see Rhaenyra just kind of like sleep with somebody she like just had feelings for, and even though like, and then she's like flirty after that, but like shit's going awry, and Otto Hightower's like, yeah, Viserys, your daughter, and he's like, get the
She's a
fuck out.
whore. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, and he's like, get the fuck out of here.
He was looking for any reason to get her thrown
And
onto
then
the shit list.
I forget with the Strong who becomes Hand of the King, and he steps in, and then
I still don't understand why he was brought back in after Hightower.
I think he just because he had no one else.
I need more of an explanation.
Maybe he had
it,
no
it
one
just
else.
felt like too.
like were
All
they?
right, I don't trust this man at all. Like he had this whole scene with him of like, I don't trust you for the better judgment anymore. Like, and then he's just like, all right, it's fine, you're back.
and it's a question of like, were they really friends? Like Otto Hightower seems to be truly out for a power play this whole time.
No, I mean he seems to be that very manipulative
Like he
jerk off
he
dude.
plants Allison there almost.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. Like Viserys recognizes that and fires him for it, and like realizes how much he's working, yet still just we have no explanation for why he's brought back. I mean, you could say, I guess, that Allison kind of manipulated him into it, but I don't know. It just seems like maybe that's just another thing of his character that just shows how naive he is. Maybe he's like, all right, I'll give this guy a second chance. I just needed a bit more from that. That was probably the weakest kind of justification for me throughout the show. What do you think about Damon in general? Like, do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you not trust? I kind of don't trust him to a degree.
How can you trust this
Yeah,
guy?
and that's so true. Like,
I mean,
yeah,
in the
you're right.
last episode, his war boner came out.
It
he
did.
was ready to kill.
But then I'm
He's
also
a killer,
like,
dude.
why wouldn't he want one of his actual sons on the throne? Like, he doesn't necessarily care for her other son. Like, they have, yeah, because Aegon is her and his son, right?
What?
Aegon is
Yes,
her is
the third.
Damon and her son,
Yes.
and Rhaenyra's. Okay,
I don't think we've seen him yet.
we see him for like 1 second when she
As a baby.
introduces him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but other than that, we don't.
It
he's
is
not
funny
around.
how I don't know how genetics work, and I would love to look up a YouTube video on this. Why her kids turned out brown haired instead of blonde haired.
Well,
I get that she's with that other dude instead, but like even like Viserys, all his kids came out blonde. I would assume that that's like the dominant gene, but I don't know.
are the male genes the dominant ones?
I don't know how that works. Again, I'm not a
It's been
geneticist.
a while. Since
I don't
I've
know
been
how
in
that
middle-
works,
A
like-
bit of middle school science class. No, there are. I mean, there are dominant traits and recessive traits.
No, absolutely. So I'm just curious. I'd be curious how that works.
If the male
Again,
traits
this is a
are-
magical place,
are
so.
stronger than the female traits.
I don't know if that necessarily plays even into a factor because I think no matter what,
I mean, yes, it does.
I don't know.
No, I mean,
I don't think male versus female is one is dominant or I think it just depends on the genes. I don't know.
I mean, in this case, all Viserys' kids have blonde hair.
Sure.
None of
No, I know, but again, I don't know how
Rhaenyra's
accurate
kids
they've
do.
got. Like again, they're
Right,
just making them for story because they couldn't make if they made them look like Rhaenyra with blonde hair. You couldn't have the subplot of are they or aren't they her kids, and or like because then you could just be like, oh well, they don't look like her, but they look like him. I thought it was interesting how they. I'm sorry that they threw away the one their real dad right at the beginning. Like they just lit him on fire. With the other dude.
We see him in the episode before the chime jump, like picking up Rhaenyra and kind of like getting her out of the wedding. And then he gets killed the episode later, and I'm interested in I'm like, how did that happen?
What do you mean? She just had it was the guy close by. That's what.
I guess it was her Kingsguard, right?
Yeah, so. or like her personal bodyguard or something. But I don't think he was a Kingsguard guy because that's why
he was.
He wasn't wearing the same armor. What's his name?
He was a Kingsguard.
I don't believe he was.
Captain of the guard?
I think he was just her royal protector or something.
He was something.
But he wasn't wearing the Kingsguard armor. I just noticed that.
He was not.
So that's the only thing I noticed, and that's why he got because they were like, you assaulted someone of the king's god. That's not good. Like I'm gonna have to. That his dad was like freaking out on him. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe don't.
And it's so funny. Like once that happens, and the rumors are going around that her kids are bastards, and it's like we're out of here.
Yeah.
We're fucking out.
Well,
and then Laird kills them.
Yeah.
He's a
little worm.
He's a snake, dude.
A worm tail.
Snake in the grass.
He really is. No, that he was sufficiently just a fucking terrible individual. Just scurrying around everywhere.
Like fucking Randall from Recess.
Yeah.
And
So he's all hunched over and he's got his limp. Oh man, imagine having a limp back then. You're just treated like a piece of shit.
And once they introduce the kids, and we have that 10-year jump and. We get the actor switch, and I was like,
you get Zoolander as what's his name?
What?
the guy with the eye patch. He looks he looks like he literally.
Well, he's not. He's
always.
He's not older yet. He's still. You're right. He's still the younger.
But when he's
version.
older, he looks like he is using blue steel at all times from Zoolander.
Yeah, that jawline, man.
And he's just, it's that's my favorite meme I've seen.
What was confusing about that was Aegon looks so much younger than Aemon. And
I agree.
I was like, why does he look like 30 years older than him? And that threw me off at first, but God, there's so much in this show to fucking look at. I mean, we Viserys's sickness through the whole show.
Apparently leprosy.
It's definitely it's leprosy.
That's what they were saying.
Yeah, it is leprosy.
Oh man, that was a good.
I'm curious if it really started from the cuts from the Iron Throne.
That would make sense.
They kind of
They really do seem to lean into that at the beginning. Like he cuts his hand on it,
and then they're putting his hands in maggots and shit.
Not good. I thought his whole look by the end, just the rugged king, was
fantastic
when he's making his way into the court.
Oh, dude, that scene where they're deciding
who will get the
drift mark.
Yeah.
And the guard opens the door and he says the whole thing and he's walking in and the music's playing.
He's got the Phantom of the Opera mask on.
So apparently when he's walking up the steps, when he drops his crown, that
just kept happening apparently, and they kept and then
I don't think it kept happening. I think it happened in the shot that they used, and Damon picks it up and they went with it. I'm like, because that was really
it worked very well. Yeah, him helping him up.
That whole scene, I was like, dude, again, I think Viserys, truly one of the good guys of Game of Thrones. It doesn't really seem like there's a bad bone in his body. He's not
making decisions out of malice.
Even though his brother has given him every reason to hate him and probably kill him, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Yeah.
How many other situations where we could have been in that, he would have totally killed him if it was a Lannister.
For sure.
And we see the Lannisters in this, and they're just as shitty as they are 200 years later.
Absolutely, yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, it's so
just
funny.
At
the hunt with the spear.
Just the worst. Just the worst. Yeah.
And it's cool. I did want to backtrack one to episode 1 because we do get our Game of Thrones. We see a Stark and a Baratheon, and then we see a Lannister. But I think it was interesting in the first episode how they talk about the Song of Ice and Fire, and it was I immediately kind of rolled my eyes.
I kind of did too.
In episode 1, they went back to it, but the importance of the Song of Ice and Fire and what Rhaenyra and Viserys are essentially prepping for ends up being super important, and I fucking loved it.
It's a cool extra layer. It makes sense why he's so focused on keeping the Targaryen line on the throne.
Yeah,
and it adds for
and
another
to the
layer
point
of
where
the
like he's
politics.
talking about it on his deathbed.
Yeah.
And like, Allison misinterprets it, or not misinterprets it, but doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
But again, that's willful misinterpretation. He's saying Aegon should be king. He just had a grandson named Aegon. So at the very least, you could be like, well, which one is he talking about? He was muttering in his sleep. He just died immediately after. That's willful ignorance. In my opinion.
I mean, but like, and everyone's kind of like, the one dude that Kristen Cole kills is like, you're gonna like go like,
this is treason.
This has been years that Rhaenyra is gonna be queen, and you think on his
all of a
deathbed
sudden he's just like, nah.
and he's like dying, like what are you talking about?
And the queen's the only one who's heard it. And that's why I think it is interesting that they did just went through. They're like, get him coronated or get him crowned. Like that's just will be another symbol of, no, this is actually real. Fuck you, get out of here.
Give him the Conqueror's, like just like Ada says, give him the Conqueror's crown with the Conqueror's sword and the Conqueror's whatever, and like
give him the whole Conqueror's armor set and get him out there.
Yeah,
no, it's true.
It's so funny. Like, I mean, this kid doesn't want to be king and definitely isn't going to be a good ruler. And like the only thing he has to say to his mom is, "Do you love me?" It's like so sad.
It is.
And she calls him like an idiot, and like she like yells at him for like masturbating out the window.
Well, and then he raped that girl too.
And like being like essentially like a whore. Like he's just fucking girls and raping people, and like his mom has to like keep him in control, like he's like a little kid.
Yeah.
Like, but he's doing this like egregious stuff. I missed this the first time around. Did you realize he has bastards fighting in that kid ring?
Yeah. They said they were like
nuts.
Aegon's. Look at it. Yeah, because he had the blonde hair, the little kid with the blonde hair.
Yeah.
It's so fucked. Who knows?
I'm like, that was
and that's the
nuts.
That's the funny thing. There's one scene with Daemon and Viserys. He's like, you took her to the whorehouse? She's like, we were down to the whorehouse like 20 times.
When they
in our
exiled him.
Yeah. He's like, what? She should be able to fuck whoever she wants. Who cares? It is interesting that he's simultaneously like a piece of shit, but also,
but
you don't know.
They're men. It's different.
But that's the funny thing. It is a very interesting context to go look back at. Like, this was genuinely when it was just, and not to say there aren't separate specifications to live under now, but it was just so different, back in that time of Ice and Fire. No, but even I guess more obviously in medieval times. They're
analogizing.
It is interesting to see and an interesting way to present it. I did like Daemon a lot. What would you think about the dragons?
They look great.
They did. I think most of the time they look great, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love how we get to see all different shapes and sizes of dragons too. Like, Verax, who's Lucerys's dragon at the end. He's like really small, and then we get
I can't remember his name.
Vagar?
I think so. That was Daemon's wife's dragon, right?
Yes, yeah, that.
And that's like a fully grown dragon.
It's the oldest dragon.
Oh, okay.
It's the oldest dragon. That's why it's so big. And then you get fucking Caraxes, Daemon's dragon, and it's like it has like a different like
fins on the back. Yeah, it's interesting.
And I'm like, they really went all out, and I'm kind of glad they did, because it looked very fucking cool.
I really did like that. There were a few cool scenes. I did think some of the dragon riding, especially in the last episode, looked really shoddy. Like when it would show them, not like the actual wide shots, but when it would show them on like dragon back, it was clearly, it just wasn't well done green screen. Other than that, though, I thought the last two episodes were much slower than I anticipated, and in some good and bad ways. I liked how they broke it up in the way of, we see all of Hightower for the penultimate episode, and then we focus on the Targaryens and Rhaenyra for the last episode. I did like that structuring. And I did like how the second to last episode ended with Rhaenys just coming up with her. What's her dragon's name?
I forgot.
Yeah, again, cool design.
Coming through the floor, could have ended it all there.
Yeah.
Could have ended but again,
she's like, it's not her war to start. Yeah.
I got a theory about her. I got a big theory about her.
All right.
Because
it's not rooted in actual facts from the books, right?
No.
All right.
So, how like when Rhaenyra is establishing her allies and figuring out who's with her, and like the people in the room, and they're like kneeling to her, and Rhaenys
doesn't kneel. Yeah.
She's like this neutral party, the Valerians, which we haven't really talked about at all.
So I actually realized, I thought about that. That's because her husband wasn't there to like make the call.
Right, but also I think she's gonna come out of this like being like one of the only survivors. Because
Sure.
I feel like she's taking this not a neutral road, but she's like clearly like watching.
See, I don't think she's taking a neutral road at all.
And she's been watching from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like she's the queen who never was. She was there at one of the most important events, and she gets sidestepped for
Because she's
cousin.
a goddamn woman.
Right. And she's
No, I know. I'm
she's
saying that like
she's
jokingly, but it's true.
No. She's in the background.
Yeah.
And she's been in the background.
Yeah.
This isn't really the events of what's going on have nothing to do with her in a way, but she's there.
Sure.
And I feel like when the show is all said and done, like she's going to be like an important like piece of whatever happens.
Yeah,
like
totally.
she's going
I
to
could
make
see
it to
that,
the end.
for
Her,
sure.
not necessarily her husband, but her.
Sure.
Because her family's like fucking decimated. Really interesting how like I forget his name.
She is a Targaryen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
okay,
she's a Valerian
yeah, but
by
she's married to
marriage.
Valerian. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, that makes
Like
sense.
her, and her son, who runs off to fucking Essos for love.
Yep.
And to
Gets his out to
Yeah.
just go live across the sea and not worry about it. Fakes his death, which
Yeah.
I thought is an interesting.
and I
plot.
mean their whole marriage is a ruse, and they kind of both go along with it. But like, look how much trouble it like,
that
really
was
causes.
a good. What's the word I'm looking for? Swap. I did not. I thought that I was like, man, they actually fucking killed him.
I was like,
damn.
no, they got him
and
out.
then they got him out. I was like, oh, thank you God. Okay, yeah, that makes me feel much
Shaves
better.
his head.
Yeah, that's
Later.
Good stuff. I'm trying to think. There is just so much to go over in this that I just get lost in the sauce sometimes.
Yeah.
Overall,
I definitely want to talk maybe more about the kids and like Helena Targaryen, the
Which
one
one's
with,
that?
with
That's like a little
Dragon
bit
Sight, who's
oh, is
predicting
that what's
things.
happening?
Yeah, she mentions like in that last episode like there like a beast comes out of the depths or something like that. Like dragon comes out of the dragon pit. In the I don't know, is that the Sept?
I
don't
think
know.
so. I think so.
I don't know what that is exactly.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was. I think it's like their big kind of church area.
Yeah, but is it the Sept that blows up in Game of Thrones?
I don't believe so.
I don't know.
I think that I thought that was like built in that show
It's
by the
newer.
new. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know exactly. Yeah, she has some sort of, three-eyed raven dragon sight thing. Like she just says random things and nobody seems to pay her much mind.
Yeah, I thought she was just crazy.
And,
I don't know.
And then she's fucking her brother too.
Yeah, that's not how.
Her cousin? Brother?
No, it's her brother. Aegon's her brother.
Right, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, so she is queen now. I didn't even think about that too. Well, queen.
No, Allison is.
Oh, really?
I don't think they're married. Allison is queen. Yeah, maybe it has something to do with age, but I think what's his name? Not Joffrey, who's his brother, who becomes king and kills himself, and how Cersei was queen regent technically.
I can't remember his name.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, him.
That's interesting. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the similar situation.
That's where he's masturbating, right? In that same spot.
Yes.
Good for him. That's interesting. I did not catch that at all by the end of that episode.
Yeah, because like Otto Hightower says Allison's like queen, and it's probably just like maybe not literally, but like she's the one calling the shots.
Sure.
Aegon ain't doing shit.
Well, the council is.
Aegon
Yeah.
is
No, he's
doing
yeah.
everything.
He's just the figurehead.
He's just like, who do I rape?
Yeah. Who?
Jesus Christ.
It's like, mother, do you love me? Can I rape someone?
Yeah.
No, it's insane. I think they.
Speaking of rape, but do you think Rhaenyra was actually pregnant and she drank the thing?
What do you mean?
The Magister brings her the milk of the
No,
poppy.
I don't.
Not the milk of the poppy, but that drink to
An abortion drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, the abortion
Do you think?
smoothie.
Do you think she took it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Well,
do you think she was actually pregnant?
I don't think it really even matters, to be honest.
really
I think
doesn't.
I think it's just more of symbolism of like, you got to erase anything of what happened last night, even if there isn't something. It was her morning after pill, basically, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
No, I think it was just it's more symbolism rather than being like, was she pregnant or wasn't she?
Because she gives it to the servant who Aegon, rapes. Trying to think. Yeah, there's a lot to go over with this show. Trying to think of anything we didn't talk about in the beginning. I want to talk about Viserys dying a little bit more, and it like the progression of his sickness was like, again, like we kind of mentioned, it was like
I thought he was gonna be dead every week.
Cool.
Yeah,
right,
and
like this guy's fucking
like how is he
on.
alive still?
Yeah, I found it crazy he was still kicking like as long as he was, and like you know he
it's funny. At first, I really thought it was
eye.
supposed to be. I mean, I don't think this is an original thought. I think a lot of people probably did. Thought it was like grayscale or something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Crab feeder.
Yeah.
That whole, you know, the war in the Stepstones. I thought that was going to end up being something more like
Very
the crab
throwaway.
feeder.
Like it was just kind of, oh, it's done.
right. Like he definitely had grayscale though.
It did look like he did. Yeah, you're right.
Because I love how like you know, and then Daemon goes in there, surrenders. Nah, just kidding. Fuck you. Takes the moment and wins the day, and kind of like you know comes back in with the crown on, and you know like I love how many times Daemon walks into that throne room or is sitting on the throne like very pompously.
Yeah,
it happens like more than a few times.
Matt Smith, man, he's great.
He returns. Yeah, Matt Smith was great. This whole cast. Patty Constantine.
Condestine. I think it's.
I think it's Constantine. Constantine.
Patty
Constantine.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
He is fantastic.
He was. I mean, I think he was my favorite
George R.
part.
R. Martin was like, "You're a better Viserys than I wrote."
I know. I
was
saw.
like,
Yeah.
That's great, man.
No,
Holy
he really
shit.
did exemplify that character really well. And again,
Yeah.
just his whole look by the end with the half mask and the crown and his golden cloak, and he's just kind of slowly making his way to the throne.
And like the
great
dinner
imagery
at the end was great. I mean, we didn't talk about when Alicent stabs Rhaenyra, that whole fight where Aemon loses his eye and he goes for the dragon, because like again, it's like interesting. Like he's the one being made fun of by not only his brother and sister, but
his cousins.
I want to call them the Strongs.
Yeah,
but you know what I'm talking. Lucerys and it's an heiress. It's a something.
Jaehaerys?
No, it's Jaceres and Lucerys, because Jace and Luke. There we go.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah, like they give him the pig dragon, and they're making fun of him because they don't have a dragon. And then he
conquers the biggest one.
His cousin, his aunt-in-law, Daemon's wife, who fucking kills herself
because she can't have her child
and she was like, instead of you're not killing me, I'm taking us both out.
Oh, we forgot about the C-section scene too.
I wanted to talk about the pregnancy in the finale. That was fucking grotesque.
But I thought the one at the beginning was way worse for me. When they actually Rhaenyra's that wasn't as bad.
It wasn't. I thought her like waddling around and telling her kid to get out of her, and this like stillborn, almost like gray fetus plops out onto the floor, and like she's telling everyone to go away, and she's in agony, but it's like weird. She's acting so strange.
Both of them are sufficiently discomforting. It's
right.
such it really does kind of depict pregnancy in this way. Of the horrors of that can come along with it. You can assume.
There are a lot of babies being born in this show.
Yeah. It's very much a show based around motherhood, very much too.
4 births in this show. Rhaenyra having birth and then giving birth and then fucking walking up those steps, that one shot, and her feet are all bloody and the blood trail. And I'm like, oh my god. And then Kristen Cole calls her a cunt.
Just the worst. Cunt, dude. Oh my god.
What was to Alicent, he's like calls her a cunt. He's like, I'm sorry.
She's like, he's like, oh, that was a step out of line.
Who calls is it Harwin Strong that calls him a cunt something? I don't know. I can't remember. Basically, I'm trying to think of what it is. It's like the best insult I've ever heard. Because he's thinking with his dick, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
In the wedding,
he calls him something. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's fucking hilarious.
I really like the Kingsguard captain. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he is Siggy Dykstra in Witcher.
He's awesome. And even that moment when he's like, they're trying to get him to go take the people down and kill Rhaenyra, he's like, I don't have a king to serve right now. I'm part of the Kingsguard.
Or not Siggy Dijkstra.
No,
Dijkstra.
thank you.
That's combined.
Dijkstra?
Yeah. The Redanian spy master guy.
Thank you very much.
I combined Siggy Reuven and him into one.
I thought you were talking about Ziggy Stardust, to be honest.
No.
But I thought that was a great scene. Again, this whole season definitely harkens back to those first couple seasons where it was just great character moments in Game of Thrones and just amazing interactions between characters that just you're on the edge of your seat the entire time. Even, the finale, the one part near the end, I don't know how much we want to get to that already. With
yeah, let's wait. That last moment is should be the last thing we talk about.
Sure, this show had me, especially in a few moments, literally on the edge of my seat, going "woo!"
The scene where Lucerys cuts out Aemon's eye, what an unexpected twist, and he's like, there were a lot of scenes where women get hit that I verbally had
it's
I'm
fuck.
Jesus, I'm like holy shit, what is it? I'm trying to think who he hits. Is it is it Daemon? No, it is in that scene where Aemon and all the kids are fighting, and he punches Daemon's kids. I forget their name.
The girls.
The Valerians. And he fucking punches them very he's fighting
what
them.
instigates that fight again? What doesn't he start?
He comes back. He has the dragon. He comes back. I'm trying to think about what
doesn't he call him a bastard or something?
Yeah, he calls him a bastard.
That's right.
Yes, he does. Yeah, and then they start going at each other, and
then they surround him and start beating the shit out of him.
And then
I love it.
Alicent's freaking the fuck out because her kid just lost her eye.
Yeah.
Viserys is everyone relax, it's okay.
Yeah.
And
these kids are being kids.
And Rhaenyra's kind of just what do I even do right now? And she stabs her with cat's
Viserys,
paw. Yeah, which is the sword, is the dagger that I was about to call her Maisie Williams. What's her Arya uses to kill the Night King.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's the same dagger.
I did not realize that.
It's cat's paw. Yeah. Huh. So that's the dagger. When you heat it up, it has the song.
Has the song on it, Ice and Fire.
Ice and Fire.
Oh, wow. I did not catch that.
Yeah,
good stuff.
That through line of the Song of Ice and Fire really
ended up being cooler than I would have expected.
I really enjoyed it.
It's not as member-berry as I was expecting.
Right. It loosely connects it back to Game of Thrones and what the culmination of sort of the Dance of the Dragons ends up being, because the Dance of the Dragons is what causes the Targaryen house to fall, essentially. It doesn't necessarily
It starts its downfall, I think, right?
It's the earthquake that starts the cracks of the foundation.
Sure.
Right. The Dance of the Dragons is sort of not the last straw, but the first straw. And then sort of because we still got a few hundred years to go, but it doesn't seem like the Targaryens really come back. Well, they don't come back from that.
Well, they do too. Well, because they're still a Targaryen in when Baratheons have that whole rebellion, right? That's why they have the whole So they're still
but they all get killed. The Mad King essentially all the Targaryens are fighting for him, and Rhaegar Targaryen dies in that conflict.
That's right.
Because he's fighting with his father.
Right.
Yeah,
but they don't have any dragons by that time, right? Yeah, that's the whole thing.
So I was Screen Crushers kind of had a theory about the dragons, that the dragons essentially fed off the power of the Targaryens following the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire, and once they got away with that, because something clearly happens, that the prophecy is not handed down to the next ruler and it gets forgotten.
Sure.
But apparently people start knowing it, and I think it's because of the Red religion.
That makes sense.
Because they're the people who
believe in that. Yeah.
Huh. And then people start hearing about it.
Intriguing.
So the fact that Targaryens are not upholding the Prince Who Was Promised prophecy essentially causes the dragons to wither and die. And even Viserys is talking about how the Targaryens really don't control the dragons.
Yeah,
And I think that's true, and the last scene really tells you that, as both sides of the coin can't control their dragons, and they're. I'm curious as to what's going on in their head. Why are they going after each other?
The dragons?
Yeah, are they to me it just seemed or what's their goal?
Well, I think smart, he sees. Right? Yeah, I feel
like they're smart.
And they seem to have good control over them to a degree, but obviously not full control. And I wonder if that comes from being a more experienced dragon rider, and maybe that wouldn't have happened to someone that's more older and experienced, or that's just how dragons are. You're never going to be able to fully control it, which makes more sense to me.
Or maybe it's because the Targaryen family is fractured and they feel that in
because that
magic.
the way they interact, at least at the end, that's like the first kind of dragon on dragon violence we've seen, and it's interesting because they do just seem like wild animals. Like the one does something it shouldn't, and that angers the other one, and that other one's bigger. So that bigger one's gonna fuck up the smaller one.
I love when Daemon, they're gathering their war assets, what they got at Dragonstone, and Daemon's like, "We got Caraxes, this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that. 13 to their 4." I'm like I was saying earlier, like he's ready to fucking tussle.
Well, I think he was waiting for this to a degree. He's
you see that with Corlys Valerian's brother, and how he was kind of asking for it. I don't think Daemon was at fault for just slicing his head off.
That seems like very victim blaming, Gooch.
She's a whore.
That was, and I saw this,
and everyone's like,
I saw a meme, and it was Viserys, and he's like sitting in the chair. It was like, someone call an ambulance, and then cuts in with a knife out. He's like, but not for me. it's so good. I thought I said it to the group chat, but
no, I don't think.
No,
you did.
I did not. I was like, oh fuck, and then he just slices half his head off him, and I love the way he sits with his sword. He slices it, and he just kind of puts it. He's like, king. He's like, shouldn't have said that. There was another thing that I felt like was glossed over was the Daemon Rhaenyra marriage. That was just kind of accept.
I guess they kind of accept it. I mean, it's a Targaryen thing.
No, and since I guess they're both adults, then that's fine. But
right,
I would expect that to be addressed a little bit more. Again, I think that's where kind of the faults of the parts that I don't love about the time jump. But I think overall, I do think the time jump works more often than it does not. So last episode, obviously Rhaenyra's kind of on the back heel. She's gathering her forces, and she sends out her 2 sons as emissaries.
Yeah.
Imagine being a 13-year-old.
And you're going to...
And they're like, you got to go check with our war allies
in the middle of a
night,
storm.
in the middle of a storm, and make sure they're with us.
Right.
Okay, I guess I'll go, Ma, thanks. And
they step up.
No, as they should. Yeah,
they step up.
I really kind of thought they were setting up that younger son to be more of the main character, and they fucking got me. He gets obliterated. I thought that I knew something was coming. I knew by the time they were in that kind of flight and chase, I was like, he's either gonna die or get mortally injured. Why else are they showing us this? And he literally just gets chomped in one bite with his dragon by Aemon's dragon.
Yeah.
And you can... I thought it was...
I love his eye patch look, by the way.
I do too. I mean,
he's got such a fucking
It's
look.
so good. It's fun. Yeah, my girlfriend was like, I don't like the way... I'm like, it works for what...
I love it.
It works for Game of Thrones, absolutely. And it was interesting to see his sapphire eye.
Yeah, he puts a sapphire in his eye.
Cool stuff. I didn't think that CGI looked great, but cool stuff.
You don't think they actually took his eye out and put a sapphire in there?
No, it's just, it doesn't... I mean, I would hope that they would do that if he has commitment, but... I thought that was an interesting idea of him being like, no, but I need your eye. But then he actually did look remorseful when the dragon killed him.
Yeah, because he was like,
that's not at all what I meant to do.
Imagine they're young still. They're 17, 16,
18, whatever.
They're not that old, and he's bullying him.
Yeah,
and
more
the
than anything,
went too far.
Yeah,
and he was like,
he fucking killed him.
Shit!
It was like.
The war has started over something that he didn't mean to do, and they
because he couldn't help but fuck with him. He couldn't help but
exactly because that's all they've done their whole lives is fuck with them.
It was interesting,
and they fuck with each other.
Yeah,
and
that is the nature of family. That will happen. That's how it goes. But when you have something as volatile as these politics intermingled, you're asking for fucking scorched earth with that death. And I did think it was a great scene of Rhaenyra to just finish it off with her receiving the news and turning around and just having this absolute look of she just had a stillborn son or daughter, child that they had to bury, and now her youngest son was just mulched. How'd they find that out?
It's a good way to put it.
How? Again, this is me wanting to get into the nitty gritty of a world that doesn't really need to be explained, but how'd they figure that out?
I mean,
I guess you would
come back.
I'm saying, no, that's true. But how? I guess
that dragon just doesn't disappear. I guess it does.
But I mean, if it falls in the ocean, then you don't have any real remnants. I would assume the dragon fell onto land. You see a chomped up bit of a dragon.
So it's funny, like, we see Team Black, kind of the blacks and the greens. I like how we kind of established the sides with like color like that.
Absolutely.
It seems,
works well. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. If you're Team Green, by the way,
Rhaenyra
fuck
seems
off.
like she, she's all for peace, and that's what she's for.
Well,
and
that's what I said. I like that moment of her kind of being like, they're like, are you going to accept these terms? She's like, well, if I don't,
right,
what are we going to do?
She's being a good ruler.
And that's
she
why
doesn't want to do what Daenerys did and torch King's Landing.
And I did like that moment with Rhaenys. That kind of showed me that she wasn't necessarily like in the middle, like where he was like, Lord Corlys was like, that crazy bitch has like torched everything she's touched, and she's like, no, she's the only thing in there keeping the guys from not torching the Seven Kingdoms. Like, she's actually smart, and that's what kind of seemed to have convinced him.
That's all over.
And now that now done. It's
so it's going to be interesting to go into season 2, and we're not getting any time jumps in season 2, so we're going to follow along the arc and the ages we're on now.
Makes sense.
Like, is she really going to go off the deep end? Like, again, like, I don't really know the source material. I don't know
it at all.
What happens at all. Yeah, we're not book readers.
I kind of like this.
I guess it's been pretty apparent. We haven't
been
referencing the books. And I know the books, like, the show has gone into more detail because, like, the books are told from, like, not
like a historian's perspective.
Not reliable sources.
A non-reliable narrator.
They're not coming from the people themselves.
Makes sense. It's like historian accounts almost or something.
Or like eyewitnesses, yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't really know how it's written per se. I assume it's written like a history book.
That makes sense.
Which is interesting, which I knew what a Fire and Blood was. It was like the Targaryen history. And, where we are witnessing the Dance of the Dragons here. But I'm interested to see where the show goes. We're supposed to get like 4 seasons. I'm down with that. 40
I love
episodes.
the idea of them having us like we're only doing. I hope they don't try and milk it after a certain point.
I don't think they will. I think they seem to really have this first
and again,
season
I don't
under
even
control.
think they milked Game of Thrones necessarily. They
No,
actually
I
should have
don't either.
milked it more. But
which is what George R. R. Martin wanted.
And they should.
But HBO was like, nah, Dan and Dave can do it in 2.
Well,
2
but
more
I
seasons.
thought. See, I read something online that he signed a contract that, like, I'm curious if he was willing to let new people come on and do it, because that was a big stipulation when they first took on the series, was that those Weiss and whoever the 2 guys would finish off the series. And I'm curious why they wouldn't have allowed new creators to come in and just make those last 3 seasons or whatever. I'd really be curious to know what the issue was there. If you could let us know in the comments, if anyone knows, we would love to hear it. But yeah, House of Dragons. I couldn't remember the name for a sec.
It's fucking House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I was at House of Dragons. Like,
is it House of the Dragon or
House of the Dragon?
Okay.
Which they say in the final episode.
It's the
Baratheon king is like, the
House of the Dragon sends nothing.
And it's the the Leo meme.
That was the first time we ever saw Storm's End too. Yeah, that was it. It was cool to see the locations in this for sure.
I mean, we're dealing with different families. I mean, like, obviously, like, we dealt with the Targaryens, but not on this level. And now, we have more of the high towers and Strongs, families we don't really know about. It's interesting.
Yeah, I guess high towers didn't exist, right?
No, I think they do.
Do they exist in the later seasons?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
Are they involved in the like Telltale game?
No, that's Forrester. That's House Forrester. That house was created for the game.
Yeah,
but it's canon apparently.
Interesting. I like it.
Yeah,
I never finished that game.
It was okay. It was like
it seemed ripe for a good Telltale game.
It was like fan servicey, the game, right? Like, what's his face? Ramsey Bolton's in it.
Oh, that's right.
And Daenerys,
Yeah.
Not Emma Watson. Amelia Clark, he did that. I think Jon Snow's also in it. Yeah, because the Forester becomes like a Night's Watch.
They have like the Ironwood or something, right? Or like don't they produce like some type of
some sort of wood?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for the future. I mean, we're not getting the next season until 2024.
Oh, really?
I think they're starting.
That makes sense.
They're starting to film.
They're not Oh, that's Lord of the Rings.
2023.
I was like, what started filming already? It's Lord of the Rings.
I don't think we're seeing that for another 2 years though either.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that took a while to produce the first season.
Right.
So
and
there's so many special effects in that too.
Is on like the similar level. Right,
for sure. Yeah, and I don't think you're dealing with as much special effects shots in that. You of course have the dragons and things like that, but I don't know. Maybe that
obviously we didn't hit every detail in our review, but
of course,
We love
That's how
the
it works.
show.
We did. I would highly recommend it.
These shows are complex. Names are always hard to remember, but I got to the end of the season. I'm like, I know who everyone is now, pretty
For
much.
sure. It's just more the similar names that kind of get me sometimes.
Rhaenys, Rhaenyra,
Yeah,
Viserys.
Aegon, Aemond,
Yeah.
Viserys.
We got another
Aegon, Daemon. It's crazy. Yeah. They recaptured the magic somehow after leaving a really bad taste in my mouth, and I will give them a lot of credit for doing so. And I mean, the views on this show speak for itself.
Highest finale since Thrones.
It's been nice to have that.
And I'm sure the rest of the season did like record-breaking numbers as well.
I wasn't watching Sundays, but it is nice to have that show to look forward to again.
9 o'clock on Sundays, dude. There's nothing like that TV slot.
No, it's nice to do.
And streaming services have taken it away. I mean, like Walking Dead is still on, and we're in the final season, but like that show isn't hitting.
Well, and
like
that's the
it
funny
used to.
thing. Most of the time, even with weekly releases on different platforms now, it's not at a certain time. It's a day. So it's like, it's out on Thursday. So I think that idea of having it like 9 o'clock on a Thursday, or like having it at a specific time, is more interesting.
I agree. I think we need to get back to the Sunday at 9. I think more shows need to realize that's a really good time slot for shows. It's most people are home and sitting down, and
it's your relaxing
watching
time
TV.
before bed.
Yeah, me and my mom, I fucking watched this show with my mom.
No, I love it. Well, the only reason I was waiting till after Sundays with my girlfriend was because she wouldn't be able to be there Sunday nights. So we would have to. Yeah, we would just have to wait.
Like with Walking Dead and like other shows, and I'm trying to think of shows that had that Sunday slot.
Sure.
But it was always like that. I think it's such a special time slot, and the streaming services have just gotten us away from it. But even though HBO Max is a thing, it's like they're not just like, it's available on Fridays. Like I don't. There's something special
about a time.
I don't think there's nothing special when I'm watching the Marvel show on Wednesday after work. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, I think
it's not hitting the same.
I think there is something to having a specific this is on at 9 tonight. I'm gonna sit down and watch it when it comes on for sure. Guys, go watch, and gals, go watch Game of Thrones. House. I keep doing that. I just keep calling it Game of Thrones.
Well, it's technically called a Game of Thrones series, House of the Dragon. But
I will say I was trepidatious at first of them using the original theme about and not coming up. I was like, it felt a bit member berries at the beginning, but then by the end, it felt like they earned it. They earned it. They earned it by the end.
Same musician. I don't think his name is. It begins with an R. He's like Indian or Middle
I don't
Eastern.
necessarily love the actual opening itself either, compared to I liked how for Game of Thrones you were going around the map.
It's very
and seeing
hard
these places.
to follow because it changes every episode.
And I'm just confused. What is it doing? It's like, is it just showing the different bloodlines? I thought that's what it was, but I didn't really understand.
When the kids get in the mix, there's more.
Interesting.
But it's just like I was watching like Screen Crush's video, and they go over. It's like, there's like for Aemond, like he has a sapphire eye now, and it's like. I can't the opening is so quick.
You wouldn't even
right. And my mom was saying the same thing. She's like, "Do you know like what this is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but like it's going so fast
that you can't really even
don't
recognize
have time
it.
to process it."
I agree. And that's, I believe, the final note for our Game of. I just did it again for our House of the Dragon Season 1 Delco Nerd Network hot take.
Absolutely,
guys, girls. Anyone who's been watching, thank you so much for watching with us. If you've been with us live on twitch.tv/Delco Nerd Network, we very much appreciate it. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Just search Delco Nerd Network. We're on all your social medias as well, at Delco Nerds on most things. We have a Facebook page, a Discord channel, all that good stuff will be linked down below. You can find all this information on our website, DelcoNerdNetwork.com. You can email us, DelcoNerds@gmail.com, with all your comments, questions, or concerns. We'd be happy to get back to you. If you could leave us a review, if you could if you could comment, all that good stuff really helps us out here. Spread the word. Tell your friends about us. It's always a good thing. For Gooch, I've been Trio. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay nerdy, and we will see you next time.